What's going on, everyone? Hope you're well. This thing, my goatee's going crazy today. It's raining. You can probably hear it in the background. I just won't come and just kind of chat. I don't know how long this video will end up being. It's coming up on an anniversary, special anniversary for me of losing my mother. And I've spoken about it on the show a few times, about the things that my mom instilled in me. And made me who I am. And I never have really explained a whole lot of things, and I'm probably going to fidget and fiddle with this for a while because I don't like when it's all like, Anyway. I got into radio because of my dad first, and then my mom second. I lost my dad at a young age, very young age. And after my dad passed, my mom, I didn't realize it then, because as a kid, you just assume your parents are parent age, whatever that may be. But as I grew up, I realized my mom was only in her 20s when the love of her life died. And she had to raise 2 kids, including me, the hellion that I am and that I have always been. She had to find some way to pick herself up in her 20s and do things she had never done. Raise kids by herself, get a job, take care of a household, pay bills, things that she didn't learn, things that she wasn't taught. She had to figure it all out. And she did it with very little help from her own family. Her family was always telling her, that she should give me and my brother up. At least that's what I've been told. They were telling her she had no business raising kids. Her own siblings were telling her this. Again, according to what she would always tell me. So she did. She figured it all out. She didn't give us up. She figured it all out. She put her feet down, picked herself up, and figured it all out. Some of my core memories of being young are watching my mom lay on the couch, blasting music, and just bawling her eyes out. Because, again, the love of her life, the father of her kids, her supporter, her backbone, the one person that I think she believed was there for her, no matter what was taken from her. And she experienced all of that in her 20s. Being the age I am now, looking back on that, I went through some stuff in my 20s, but I was a dumbass in my 20s. Dumb ass. But that's who my mom was. And again, she cried, she mourned her whole life for my father. A man I didn't even really get to know. I mean, I've got some memories of him, but I never really got to know him because he died when I was young. So my mom picked herself up because she had 2 little boys that needed her. And those 2 little boys became her entire world, as they should. And she did everything she could for them. The first Christmas after my dad died, my mom had been working a whole lot, and I didn't understand why. And then on Christmas Day, I saw why. She wanted us to have one of the best Christmases we ever had. And it was one of my best. I got every G.I. Joe I ever wanted, or Mask toy. It used to be an 80s. Those of you from the 80s will remember Mask. She gave me every one of those masks that I asked for. I got every one of them. The big snake oil truck. I got the Mask headquarters. I got every Mask car you could think of. My brother was the G.I. Joe guy. I got a couple of G.I. Joes because, he wouldn't share and I would probably take them from him. So she knew that she had to get me some too. So she did. That's what she did. And then the place we were living at was in my dad's name, and they weren't going to let us stay. So she had to find us a place to live. And through blessings, we were able to get a place. It was the place that I technically grew up in. We stayed there until I was almost 17. And she took care of that house and did everything again, mostly on her own. I would cook when I learned how to cook and do things in the kitchen to try and have a meal and stuff for her when she came home, but she worked her ass off. And all I remember growing up was there was no concept of like poor or rich. There just wasn't. We always had what we wanted. We damn sure had what we needed. And then she would always give me what I wanted. Like when I became a teenager, Michael Jordan really started getting popular and his shoes started getting popular. So, of course, me being who I was at the time, I wanted the latest and greatest shoes. And she would get them. $300 pair of shoes for a kid. Just because I wanted it. And all the while she was doing all of this, when she was home, she was spending every second she had with me and my brother. We would sit around and watch movies all weekend. Like, sun up to sundown, we were watching movies. Or we would be in her car, driving all over town, just driving, listening to music and music blasting. And the reason I got into radio is because, again, after my dad died, I didn't know, what I was going through or what I was feeling or any of that stuff. And I reached out to a local radio station at the time and just wanted to talk. I loved the music they were playing. I loved everything they were doing. And I just called. And the guy that answered the phone, that had probably a million fucking things to do, talked to me the entire time. He would, kind of put me on hold and do his radio spill and do what he needed to do. He put me on air a couple of times. And he talked to me. And I remember thinking, wow. And then as I got older, teenage, started driving, started getting in trouble in school, I had to take extra credit classes, and I was able to go and do it at a local radio station. And that's where I got the bug. And one of the program directors there was trying to be, big shot, I guess, or whatever. And was testing me on my music skills and what I knew about music. And he pulled out some 50s and 60s and told me, who sings this song? And I told him. He'd pull out another one. I'd tell him who it was. He'd pull out another one. I'd tell him who it was. And he goes, how the hell does a 16-year-old in the 90s know all this? And I'm like, my mom. My mom listened to everything. Country, soul, rock and roll. And she blared it. And anytime I had questions, she'd answer. Like, oh, Mom, who sings this? And then we started bonding over the music tastes that she had. My music tastes she didn't like because I was heavy into rap. And she didn't like that. But there were a lot of songs that we did bond with. And my love for music came from her. So when I had the opportunity to get into radio, I went into radio with the idea of somehow paying the universe back for what it did to me when I was young. And all the music I played on my first show was music that my mom liked. Sometimes when I take a drag off of that, it makes that noise. I don't know why. I apologize. But anyway. So I really started to... I got in trouble on my first show because the music I played was not the formatted music for the radio station. But I wasn't playing it for the radio station. I was playing it for my mom. And I've helped a lot of people through radio that just needed to talk, and I'm not here to talk about that, but that was one of the goals that I set out to do. And then when I used to go by a different name on air, and when I came to a local station here in Birmingham, the program director told me going by like a different name than my own would be difficult, and he really talked to me about it. And he was like, when you're out in public and people are yelling for you, and then somebody yells your name that knows you, everybody's gonna be like, what? And he brought up a good point. So that's when I changed to my real name and started using Nick. I've always closed my show with what I tell you guys is my customary goodbye. And the reason I've always done the customary goodbye is because of the things and stuff that I've lived through, the people that I've lost that I didn't have a chance to tell I loved, and as a way to kind of tell my mom through radio that I loved her, because again, I don't convey my emotions or my feelings the way I wish I could. And that's not my mom's fault. That's no fault of her own. I learned unconditional love from my mom. She told me she loved me, and I told her I loved her. But I never told her what she meant to me and how valuable she was to me. And she never got to see me as me on the radio. She only knew me as my personality name. And I decided I would honor her when I came up with a name with that previous GM of mine. Which I need to caveat real quick and say this. Me and that GM, I've been kind of outspoken about the stuff that I went through with him. He did something for me, though, that is something that I'm never going to forget. And even with all the drama we went through, if he called me for something, I'd be there. And what that was, because we were friends. We kind of both messed it up, but I'm sure I fucked it up way more than he did. And I regret that. I've posted about it, I've talked about it. Huge regret. Because when my mom died, I lashed out on Facebook. And he messaged me. And he told me. He said, look, man, I can have cold beer in the fridge if you don't want beer. I got water. I can have coffee, brewing. Come, let's talk. He said, you don't want to talk? I'll just sit there. You need somebody to beat up? Come beat me up. I didn't even really know him that well either. And for him to do something like that for me was big. Where I come from and how I was raised, you got people's back. You know what I mean? And I've always had people's back, but I've never really felt, outside of my mom and my brother and my wife, that anybody ever really had my back. Friends, homies, whatever. I know they have, but not to that level. He didn't even really fucking know me. And that's why I can't go over the full hump of just completely hating the man. But anyway, I decided, and I told him, because he was about to put me on air, he was like, so what's your name going to be? And I said, I think it's going to be Nick B. He wanted to know what the B stood for, as a lot of people do. And I've always joked and told him it stands for bastardo in Spanish, which means bastard. Nick the Bastard. Because that's who I felt I've always been. I've always been the asshole. Even though I try not to be, somehow I end up always doing something assholey. And so I embraced it. But the B in Nick B is a nickname that my mom gave me. I'm not going to tell you what the nickname is, but everything I have done my entire life has tried to be to show my mom how much she meant to me and how grateful I am, or was, for all the things that she did for me, instead of just fucking telling her. So my customary goodbye at the end of every one of my shows that I've done for the last solid 18 years at least has been hug your loved ones each and every day, because you never know when the good Lord will call them home. That's how it started, and it's grown into what it is today, which is pretty lengthy. The reason I always put that out there was because it was my way of trying to convey to my mom how much she meant to me. And you know, I've suffered immeasurable losses throughout my life. My dad, my daughter, my mom. And I don't want other people making the same mistakes I did by, getting into a fight with somebody they really care about and then that person no longer being there. So I wanted to be the loudest fucking voice I could be to tell people, hey, don't be that way. Call them. That's why I added squash whatever beef you have with anyone, because this life is far too short to ever spend a millisecond of it angry. Never, ever, never, ever, 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 never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, go to bed angry at anyone. Always apologize. Find a way to make it right and mean it. That's why that got added. Mostly because of my mom. Because there's a lot of regret that I have, and a lot of things that I blame myself for that happened around the time my mom died. Too lengthy to really get into here. But I am who I am because of my mom. The stubbornness, even the asshole side of me. But the part about trying to help. Because my mom, no matter what happened, no matter what I did, no matter what I said, no matter how I treated her, she was always there to help. And that's who I want to be. In radio, in life, as a dad, all of that. If I could just muster up 0.5% of who my mom was, I think I did all right. So there you have it. It's a little bit of an explanation of where the customary goodbye came from and what the B stands for in Nick B, the real B. I'm reflecting because it's coming up on the anniversary of my mom's death, and just kind of sitting here missing her, listening to a lot of music that she loved, and realizing that my mom was everything to me, for my wife, for my kids. And she's not here no more. And that sucks. So, going forward, I'm going to get some tattoos to honor my mom. I got a few in mind. And I'm going to go even harder on my mother's legacy and my mother's memory and everything my mom was. I'm starting a foundation that I'm going to try and figure out how to honor her and name it after her, or name it something that exemplifies who she was to me. The world will understand it differently, and that's okay, because the world didn't get to know my mom, and that sucks. I wish they did. I wish, with what I've got going on right now and where we're about to be heard and how we're going to be heard, I wish the whole world could hear from my mom. Just to call her and have her be part of the show and just tell a story or whatever. But the two greatest things that she gave me was loving, no matter what, kind, love, show compassion, no matter what, and music. And then again, helping. That is who Nick B is. That is who I'm striving to be every day. And granted, I fall short a lot. I get up in my feelings about a lot of things. But I'm going to try and do better. I have to do better. I have to quit giving excuses and acting childish. Even as old as I am, I still act childish. It is who I am. So, just felt like telling you guys what it was all about and what it's all about. So, there you have it. Y'all be good. And as always, hug your loved ones each and every day, because you never know when the good Lord will take them home. Call your parents. Give them a hug. Go visit them. Tell them that you love them. Hug on them as long as you have them, because once they're gone, you're going to miss them like hell. Take it from me, so do it. Call them. Hug them. Tell them that you love them. And let them know what they mean. And like I said, squash whatever beef you have with anyone, because life is far too short to ever spend a millisecond of it angry. Never, ever, ever, ever go to bed angry at anyone. Always apologize. Find a way to make it right and mean it. That is the key part. And above all else, if you remember nothing else from me, remember this. Never trust a big butt and a smile. Last call will find us all. For every dark night, there's always a brighter day. And life is just a party. And parties weren't meant to last. I'll see y'all when I see you. Y'all be good. Y'all be safe. Just try to love a little bit more. That's all I'm saying. Y'all be good.